this is on the iPhone or some kind of messaging service within an app. But if you type #gay, the hashtags are rainbow. There is a loophole, though. If you put #kissing the homies goodnight, it does not become rainbow, which means that is not gay. Oh, I hate parties, by the way. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I hated parties when I was 19, 20, didn't drink. I would study at parties and just be like better than everyone and be like, you guys
They're
are
all drunk assholes.
Yeah. And then
you became a drunk asshole.
I guess I'll go fuck myself. But anyways, this was the first time I'd been to a party sober in like years. And I realized I was like, wow.
Wow, parties really do suck.
I was right, and I should have just never started. And it was so bad.
The BoJack thing.
Yeah, do I hate music?
Yeah. Is this what music is?
Yeah.
Is it that I hate music?
It was really funny because you could tell, like, it was our young people's group. So, like, everybody there were people, like, in their 20s, 30s, 40s in recovery.
Is 40's the new 20?
I guess, yeah. I'm saying it because you're turning 38 next month, and I'm, like, kind of freaking out about it. I get to have a midlife crisis for Peter and me.
Yeah.
Also, that is not midlife, to be clear. You better fucking live longer than 80 because
I will.
You cannot die when I'm 68.
They haven't been able to kill me yet, so I don't see why age would.
That's true. But you could tell the people who like were drinkers and users because like they like to party and they were like, yeah, and like fucking crazy. And now they all have like a long time of sobriety. So like now they're just like high on life.
Yeah.
And like still like that. And then you could tell the other half of people who were definitely drinking and using because like they were anxious and like they wanted to kill themselves. It was the difference between the people who were screaming and loud and like partying and the people who would like cry at parties.
Uh-huh.
And I was both. I was the first one for like 10 minutes and then I would very quickly.
And then after that.
After those 10 minutes, once the shirt was off, I had a few minutes of that. And then I was just like, eh. And then I stopped going out because I wanted to drink by myself. It's alcoholism, not alcoholism.
I've never heard that.
I hear that at least thrice a week.
Wow. That's intense. Tighten your buttholes. It's time for Pact. I'm Peter Coffin. That's the P. This little Danny DeVito shirt wearing person is Ms. Astronaut Cowboy Doctor. That's the ACD, of course. So it's PACD. That spells out Pact. It's on the screen right there. Pact. Don't forget to subscribe, like, leave a comment, leave a rating, all of that stuff. We really appreciate all of it. Thanks for tuning in every week. It's Pride Month.
Happy Pride.
It's Juneteenth on the 19th, and then it's also Pride Month. There's so much stuff going on this month, and there's so much to represent properly.
Let's talk about Pride Month first.
Yeah.
Everything you need to know about Pride Month.
This is published by People magazine.
Starting with the Stonewall Uprising in June 1969.
Uprising, not riot. We're not going to say anything that might accidentally conflate it with the old January 6th. Because if you remember, it used to be called, proudly so, the Stonewall riots.
Pride Month both commemorates and celebrates LGBTQ activism and culture through the years. June is Pride Month. And though it continues to look different this year as the country emerges from the COVID-19 pandemic, that doesn't mean we shouldn't be celebrating the work of LGBTQ activists who have changed the world.
You know, I was kind of thinking that, like, since COVID-19 happened, we should not do that. Everybody got sick, so let's not celebrate the gays, okay? Can we not do that? Everybody's sick.
It's not clear whether that's sarcastic or not to me.
I am making a joke.
I'm struggling with the joke because it's kind of acting like you're supporting Pride Month.
Hold on. You're like, wow, you're making a joke in support of this thing?
Well, that's...
You were just like so confused by like, oh, I wouldn't just like be like shitting down Pride Month's throat the whole time.
Well, yeah, I am.
Like it comes from something that's not bad.
Well, yeah. What is Pride Month? Pride Month is an entire month dedicated to the uplifting of LGBTQ voices, celebration of LGBTQ culture, and the support of LGBTQ rights. Throughout the month of June, nationwide, there have traditionally been parades, protests, drag performances, live theater, and memorials and celebrations of life for members of the community who lost their lives to HIV/AIDS. It's part political activism, part celebration of all the LGBTQ community has achieved over the years.
Which, I mean, there's nothing wrong with like celebrating.
The problem is that Pride Month in its current forms, it's just rainbow capitalism.
It is.
Right.
100%.
That's all it is.
And ostensibly, like its stated purpose is good.
Just like feminism, for example.
Exactly. It is taking an identity-oriented concern, and it is acting as though class is not a part of it. It's this separate metaphysical concern, and the way that we talk about it on capitalist media, it's all about, again, the uplifting of LGBTQ voices, the celebration of LGBTQ culture, and the support of LGBTQ rights. Without class, a material relationship to the means of production, it is whether you do or do not own that, not a social identity. It's not a measure of how much money you've got. And it is the source of all power in a capitalist society. All of it. Any ideological privileges that are given, they can be revoked by those who have capital.
Right. Those are superstructural products of the capitalist base.
Let's say you wanted to have food in a society where modern conditions of production prevail. Where does that food come from? Fucking factories. So who owns the factories has the power. That's how capitalism works. And when we talk about uplifting LGBTQ voices, we're really talking about representing them in the mainstream media and ultimately in the bourgeoisie.
Well, I think that segues nicely into this next paragraph.
Oh, definitely.
You want?
Yeah. What is the pride symbol? You probably knew that the rainbow flag, created by artist Gilbert Baker in 1978, is used as a symbol of LGBTQ pride. But did you know that each color on the flag has its own meaning? Well, each color must have some kind of identity-oriented meaning, though. Because, I mean, we have to keep adding other colors in because we need other identities that are excluded from this flag to be represented by the flag, right? And also Ukraine, because apparently that has something to do with Pride Month. If you're from Ukraine, you're gay, I guess. In the widely known six-color flag, red is symbolic of life, orange is symbolic of healing, yellow is sunshine, green is nature, blue represents harmony, and purple is spirit. In the original 8-color flag, hot pink was included to represent sex, and turquoise to represent magic/art.
I love that. I actually didn't know that about the original Pride flag. I thought that each color represented something, or at least assumed I did, based off of other flags.
The fact that they've
made.
thrown the
Right.
many different colors of many different identities into these flags, and umbrellas too.
But each color is something that is universal to all people who are in the LGBTQ plus community.
As the rainbow itself represents universality. A rainbow is intended to be, whether you're actually showing every single possible color or not, it's intended to be a spectrum that is saying, hey, we're all one thing in this rainbow.
And we all experience these things. So this next paragraph says, there have been many variations on the flag. In 2021, the flag, they made a typo.
Was.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, that's what threw me off.
That's funny as shit.
In 2021, the flag was altered in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter protests, including black to represent diversity, brown to represent inclusivity, and light blue and pink, the colors of the trans pride flag. But it's interesting because they're kind of representing at least the black and brown as things representing universal constructs rather than communities. But then they throw in the trans flag in a weird way, saying, like, this represents trans people. So if they added black and brown for diversity and inclusivity, those are universal constructs. But
they didn't do that, though.
That's not what they
stand that is for. Absolutely not what those stand for. They stand for black and brown bodies.
With the trans flag, the trans pride flag, they're just saying we added these colors for this community that should already be represented in the universal constructs that the original flag represented.
I guarantee you the reason why they said that black and brown represent inclusivity rather than black and brown bodies, because that's what they do represent, is because black and brown people probably don't like hearing, like, hey, you're gay now. Like, it's including a racial angle on something that is about that.
They're sanctioning off segments of the population of sexual and gender minorities. Whereas the original pride flag, even though like immediately co-opted by corporations and capitalism, not to the extent that it is today, but at least was created in the realm of uniting solidarity building characteristics that are relevant to the struggle of the queer community.
Yes. The way that they're doing the pride flag now, with all of the various different identities represented by separate colors, is a perfect, in my opinion, representation, not to use the word as a joke here, but it's a perfect representation of how intersectionality is actually cordoning off identities rather than intersecting.
It's not solidarity based. It's weird because it has this like sanctioning of people of color and of trans people.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's represented in these solidarity building universal struggles except for black and trans people, which aren't a part of that. It has this weird like segmenting exclusionary thing that probably in theory claims to be intersectional and acknowledging disproportionate oppression, whatever, but what it does is segments off the most marginalized populations in this community.
Which is already a problem as it is, segmenting those people off. Which is
already a problem as it is, and they would, of course, that's not intentional, but it's symbolic, and that's the only thing that matters to these people.
Mm-hmm.
They can't even do their own thing right, where they get it symbolically correct, like AOC not forcing the vote. Anyway.
Why do we celebrate in June? We celebrate in June to coincide with the catalyst of the gay liberation movement. That was the Stonewall uprising. In the early morning hours of June 28th, 1969, police raided a popular gay bar in NYC's West Village, the Stonewall Inn. This was commonplace for the time, but on this particular evening, the patrons of the bar fought back, starting the Stonewall riots, which went on for days. The Stonewall Inn was declared a historic landmark by the city of New York in 2015 and later named a national monument by President Barack Obama in 2016. This June is the 52nd anniversary of the first Pride Parade, which happened in 1970, 1 year after the uprising.
So, started for a materially important purpose, or at least to honor a materially relevant event wherein working class people fought against the special bodies of armed men designed to protect the capitalist state.
Exactly.
Thus, of course, homophobia.
Well, yeah.
Which is a superstructural product of that.
Here's the reason why it does matter that this stuff happened. Not because of the big celebrations that happen and not because of the changing of logos on corporations, not because of representation or acknowledgement or any of that shit. It happened because of oppression by the state. It happened because working class queer people going to gay bars was a problem for this ideological state, which was still at the time trying to maintain an old mode of consumption where everybody had to conform to some extent what was expected of them in public. To resist against those things was to say, I recognize what you're doing. And at that point in time, had there been a more class conscious movement, which was paying attention to the gay community, that would have been a ripe fucking place to start communist organizing.
The 70s were a tough time for that. So in a similar vein, an important designated time for observation occurring annually that honors something that is important but has been co-opted, fetishized, turned into market shit. Marginalized capitalism, TM, if you will.
An image to consume of equality.
Yeah.
More or less.
That's good. Yes. Juneteenth. It's an important date and has a lot of rich revolutionary history among Black communities.
Frankly, if one is a patriot, it is an important day in American history, particularly for if you're talking about relation to means of production. It was enforced that there is no slave class that day.
Right. Juneteenth, somebody explained what this is. What is this from again?
History.com.
So Juneteenth commemorates the effective end of slavery in the United States. Juneteenth, short for June 19th, marks the day when federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas in 1865 to take control of the state and ensure that all enslaved people be freed. The troops' arrival came a full 2.5 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. Juneteenth honors the end to slavery in the United States and is considered the longest-running African-American holiday. On June 17th, 2021, it officially became a federal holiday. How did that work? What is that process like?
Well, it was a congressional proposal that passed both the House and Senate, though, and made it to old Joe, who probably had no idea what he was signing.
Yeah. No, he's a hero. And he is Black because he voted for himself.
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't Black.
Confederate General Robert E. Lee had surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse 2 months earlier in Virginia, but slavery had remained relatively unaffected in Texas until U.S. General Gordon Granger stood on Texas soil and read General Orders No. 3. The people of Texas are informed that, in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. So, huge fucking deal.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't need to describe the horrors of slavery for our podcast. It's an extremely big deal, which makes the fact that this is now being commodified even more disgusting. In the same way that pride is. But, I mean, I don't think I'll get shit on for saying this, but way more intense.
As much as, like, the conformity ideologies, that stuff was bad. It coerced people into places that they didn't need to be in if they had just been allowed to be free. Was it the same as being tied to a stake in the middle of town and whipped because you didn't do the work fast enough?
And again, this is we're talking on a systemic level. Texas alone had 250,000 enslaved people. So hundreds of thousands, millions of slaves being mangled, dying.
Just being slaves.
Like, that's not to say that people haven't been beaten and killed because of their sexuality, because they have.
They have, but it was not systemic.
Yeah.
It was ideological.
And at a much quantitatively smaller scale.
And also you couldn't hide that you were Black.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
The Emancipation Proclamation. The Emancipation Proclamation, issued by Abraham Lincoln on July 1st, 1863, had established that all enslaved people in Confederate states in rebellion against the Union shall be thenceforward, and forever free. But in reality, the Emancipation Proclamation didn't instantly free any enslaved people. The proclamation only applied in places under Confederate control and not to slaveholding border states or to rebel areas already under Union control. However, as Northern troops advanced into the Confederate South, many enslaved people fled behind Union lines. Basically, the Emancipation Proclamation was the ideal, and this was the enforcement. It's wild. If you just say things like, we should be free, it doesn't make us free.
You can't just will racism ending into existence, even if you're the fucking president.
Even if you're the fucking president. You can sign a piece of paper that says racism got to stop, man. But until you send troops to stop it.
Right.
And that's
backed by the violence of the state.
Exactly.
Juneteenth and slavery in Texas. In Texas, slavery had continued as the state experienced no large-scale fighting or a significant presence of Union troops. Many enslavers from outside the Lone Star State had moved there as they viewed it as a safe haven for slavery. After the war came to a close in the spring of 1865, General Granger's arrival in Galveston that June signaled freedom for Texas's 250,000 enslaved people. Although emancipation didn't happen overnight for everyone, in some cases, enslavers withheld the information until after harvest season. Celebrations broke out among newly freed Black people, and Juneteenth was born. That December, slavery in America was formally abolished with the adoption of the 13th Amendment. The year following 1865, freedmen in Texas organized the first of what came to be the annual celebration of Jubilee Day on June 19th. In the ensuing decades, Juneteenth commemorations featured music, barbecues, prayer services, and other activities, and as Black people migrated from Texas to other parts of the country, the Juneteenth tradition spread. In 1979, Texas became the first state to make Juneteenth an official holiday. Several others followed suit over the years. In June 2021, Congress passed a resolution establishing Juneteenth as a national holiday. President Biden signed it into law on June 17, 2021. I think it's very odd that both of these, especially this one, after Abraham Lincoln stated you can't have slaves and slaves are free, and that didn't end slavery.
That didn't take.
As a class society thing. It's weird that this ends on, like, and the president signed this.
Yeah.
That's great. Just
to me, just
class propaganda.
It's
whatever.
real. Yeah, exactly. It's class collaboration.
Right.
Making its appearance at the end of these two different pieces from different publications with different authors, just to make sure that you understand that the state is on your side now, whether you're gay, whether you're Black, or whatever. All that in mind, we do live in a place where those groups are treated marginally better. Not necessarily free in the freest sense of the word, because nobody in the proletariat is, but better. But there is a cost. That cost is, in fact, that you only actually get these celebrations, these genuine human expressions, and the rights that these celebrations are about. You only get this stuff when companies figure out how to commodify you. At the general level, there's pride logos on every single corporate logo now. You go to amzn.to and they tell you where you can reach Black-owned businesses on Amazon.
You go in, I don't know if this is on the iPhone or some kind of messaging service within an app, but if you type #gay, #lesbian, #bisexual, the hashtags are rainbow. There is a loophole, though. If you put #kissing the homies goodnight, it does not become rainbow, which means that it's not gay.
The homies don't count.
Yeah.
Homies not equal homo.
Yeah. It has like the equal sign at the...
Yeah, with the slash through it.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break to tell you about dinner, which is not just a meal you make every night. Sometimes there's just no time to make it. You got kids, you got a job, you got work. There's so much to do. A thing that will not help you with dinner at all, in any way, shape, or form, is our podcast, Pact.
In fact, we're asking you to budget less for your dinner so you can support us on Patreon.
It's not a thing that's necessarily going to benefit you in any way. However, it will benefit us. Actually, that's not entirely true. If you are a Patreon member, you can get new episodes early, bonus episodes now, which have been absolutely hilarious. That 12-12-12 story. That's now up for patrons.
Did you guys like it?
And we've got tons more because our bullshit is just becoming bonus episodes. But also you get very important docs early. You get movie night on our Discord in which we watch movies together. You have to make your own dinner if you intend to eat during that. HelloFresh, I guess, could help you, but we
probably won't either.
No, you have to pay them. And don't do that. Give us your money.
Yeah. Subscribe to Pact, which delivers more than food.
We don't deliver food at all. Go to patreon.com/PactPod. Important to put the Pact Pod in for you to get your 15% discount on nothing. There is no 15% discount.
Dinner. It's what's for dinner. And that's why I watch Pact Pod. The only podcast packed with nutrients for your brain.
Let's get back to Pact. This has all come to a head very publicly thanks to a very interesting event a few weeks ago.
Thanks to an incompetent representative of a large corporation.
An incompetent consultant of a PR firm managed to really blow the cover for this whole thing. Amazon this week gave marching orders to one of its consultants. Push hard on the narrative that legislation to rein in Amazon's power will harm communities of color.
I love it. So in this article, it does not say how this Amazon spokesperson claims that this will do that. There's no evidence for how that will happen.
That's the thing, though. Nobody ever has to say how.
Right.
That's what no materialism does to a MF.
Yeah.
In an email exchange mistakenly forwarded to Politico, Amazon spokesperson Julia Lawless asked a consultant with FTI Consulting to press media outlets to report on a letter from a minority group criticizing the American Choice in Innovation Online Act, a bill moving through Congress that would block the largest tech companies from giving preference to their own products over their competitors. Literally, an antitrust law.
Yeah. So let me make a parallel to us talking about food delivery services being the heroes of stopping the problem of food deserts. Here, this Amazon spokesperson is framing Amazon as this paragon of economic hope for people of color.
Wow.
Which is what these corporations are doing all the fucking time. So this isn't like a surprising thing, but
it's not new
nice
at all
to draw the connections between those two things because it's the same.
But yeah, when Amazon gives preference to their own products over their competitors, that's something that supposedly helps people of color.
Yeah, that's the message that Julia Lawless is.
But how, one might ask? You're a racist, is the answer.
Yeah.
Would it be possible for you to push this with some of the newsletters, Politico Tech, Politico Health, etc., to underscore continued concern from a broad cross-section of groups, including communities of color? Lawless wrote in this email to this FTI consultant, which Lawless linked to a letter the National Minority Quality Forum, an advocacy group focused on health disparities among minority groups, sent to lawmakers raising concerns about whether the bill would protect against health data breaches. The letter was addressed to the Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, and the bill's Democratic co-sponsor, Senator Amy Klobuchar, who are working to pass the bill by the end of the summer. The push from Amazon this week is the latest effort from tech giants to fight unfavorable legislation by claiming it will hurt minority groups, including by funding some of these advocates, as Politico previously reported. The National Minority Quality Forum lists Amazon as one of its corporate partners.
Okay, so any work that the National Minority Quality Forum does to alleviate health inequity with Amazon as a corporate partner will not exert sustained material change.
Well, so what's happening here is that this article is telling people, hey, this advocacy group that is supposedly a nonprofit, that is supposedly advocating for a minority group's rights, is co-opted by being funded by a large corporation. They're saying the National Minority Quality Forum is the same thing we were saying land back is.
Yeah.
And for that, they have gotten none of the same kind of pushback. In fact, they're being lauded on Twitter as discovering this, which, by the way, they really shouldn't be lauded for it. Somebody accidentally emailed them
Politico.
this whole thing.
Yeah. So I love this. Companies frequently push messaging that is favorable to their causes from advocacy groups. But the email is notable because it provides new details on how Amazon is working to beat back the most serious regulatory threat the tech industry has faced in decades. The social justice message is particularly resonant during the Biden era, during which Democrats have emphasized racial and ethnic discrimination. And they point out the hypocrisy in this in a way that looks at symptoms and superficial results. But they're at least pointing out the hypocrisy of Amazon, saying that it is a beacon of racial justice and hope because of their past mistreatment of Black and Muslim employees, which all of them.
Sure. Yeah. That's nothing. There's nothing.
Selling racially biased facial recognition technology and spreading pollution in communities of color with its warehouses. So that's their way of pointing out that hypocrisy.
They're not the only ones. Like, they cover after that Google and Meta both doing the same thing, specifically Google, urging reporters to cover a letter denouncing the same legislation by the National Newspaper Publishers Association, which is a trade group representing Black newspaper publishers, which has received funding from Google. This is what glues it all together. We talked about what actually goes into Pride and what actually goes into Juneteenth, what these things were about and why people care about them.
Why we care about them.
Yeah.
Or why we care about the causes that they purport to exemplify.
Sure.
Their recognition.
And these both represent places that are ripe for class consciousness and therefore at least the kindling that you could start revolutionary action on. Is that the way that it went? Not necessarily. And that's evidenced by the fact that these companies have been able to use sexual and gender minority identity, racial identity. They've been able to use this stuff to advance their own corporate agendas. And while we get specifics in the form of this article, it is every
pervasive.
Single one of them.
Absolutely ubiquitous.
Exactly. Anytime you see any Pride thing on television, on a mainstream internet outlet, anywhere, they are doing it for this reason.
Yes.
Even if it is just footage of people enjoying themselves at a Pride parade or a Juneteenth celebration, they are using it. They're doing this to advance the image that capital is your path to liberation. You can collaborate across class lines, and they will help you get to the promised land. And they won't. They absolutely won't. And that's the whole point that we've been getting at with the Kollontai readings. We've been criticizing things like feminism, criticizing intersectionality, talking about metaphysically removing a singular concern from the dialectical materialist view and concentrating on that specifically. You can't do it. Because no matter how far you think you've come with capital, no matter how nice they're treating you, they're doing it because they want you to let them exploit you. It's conditional. It's permissive. And it's always going to be. And that's why they inject their corporate logos into it. And they inject the police into the parades, and they do everything they can to show you the version in which the ruling class is progressive and loves you, while at the same time doing the same shit that they do to everybody in the proletariat in a, frankly, more insidious way by claiming that it is about your liberation. It's not, and it's never going to be. And it's time to start becoming class conscious and understanding that you cannot collaborate with the ruling class to buck the ruling class's oppression off your back. The best they can do is say, yeah, that's fine for now. You do that. That's all for today. Thanks again for watching. This is Pact. I'm Peter. This is Miss Astronaut Cowboy Doctor. To help us out, click like, follow, subscribe, whatever. Leave us 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Audible. To support us, become a patron at patreon.com/PeterCoffin. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you later.